Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. 2017 has been an exciting year for Yuven Naidu, who is our executive in residence. He was appointed to the prestigious Young Presidents Organization. He was also, in February, awarded the Harvard Business School's African Leadership Excellence Award. It is an award that recognizes remarkable achievements of alumni who are making a difference, especially on the African continent. Yuven started a new position in July. He's now the head of Financial Institutions of Africa at Thomson Reuters, managing a team across 6 countries. He was appointed Harvard Senior Fellow, and this is awarded to leaders globally who engage with students and faculty. With all this experience, he's going to bring this to South Africa and to the school.
Really, the big honor today is to have 2 experts, Kuseni Dlamini and Lou Claassen, join our class, but tied to an important subject, the 4th Industrial Revolution, this growth, this advent of technology, this fast-paced world that many of us in business are wondering, how will this turn out? How do you keep up? Is the very education that people are receiving at the business schools around the world, at the universities, able to keep pace? On top of these changes of whether your business is focused or a diverse business and what that alignment is, businesses today are facing the headwinds of the so-called 4th Industrial Revolution. We often think that the time we are in at this moment is a unique time. Society is in peril. The changes are so great. But there have been changes throughout the millennia. You'll see this is one of the pictures that emerges about transitions. And it's interesting that in this time there were still people who felt, you know what, this car is so noisy, I'm going to hook up my horse to it. And that's that transition phase. We may think that the 4th Industrial Revolution is something that's happening elsewhere. And one could argue that the continent of Africa, South Africa being a key player on this continent and leader, just like mobile phone technology had its largest impact on our continent, the 4th Industrial Revolution may have the largest impact here. And so how do we create a set of leaders, business thinkers, people in society who are able to think through this ecosystem and harness some of these themes so that we are well positioned to take advantage? The computational power is growing exponentially. Cost of that is decreasing. Connectivity is rapidly increasing. At the last World Economic Forum, they launched the Internet for All initiative. An initiative that started in East Africa and is now here, and the goal of that is to blanket the country with affordable, accessible, great bandwidth. It's going to be a transformational effort if we get it right. And lastly, storage is changing. These 3 things in total are transforming the way we are doing business. Bitcoin as an example, cloud businesses are a result of this. And all of these changes are taking place in our midst. Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum several years ago came up with this concept of the 4th Industrial Revolution. It's taking that computing power further. The rise of artificial intelligence, data, robotics. What is the role of that ecosystem here? Here in Africa, here in emerging markets? Is it going to increase the divide? Are we going to participate? Because at our peril, do we think that this is something that we can afford to wait to happen to us as opposed to try to be a part of it and to shape it? The sharing economy has changed the way we interact. So Uber is the epitome of the sharing economy, Airbnb. Assets that we previously had that we weren't utilizing are suddenly being used. And here's the background to self-driving cars and other concepts that we think are esoteric now. The enhancement of our abilities is taking place right before our eyes, and it's happening gradually. Skills. This is the challenge we face. Many of you students in this space, we often wonder, is the degree that you are spending all this time and effort and opportunity cost on, is it going to be relevant? We have engineers who are no longer engineers, doctors who are no longer doctors, because we live in a multi-skilled world. And is our education system preparing us for this? And lastly, stuff. Is legislation keeping up? Are we keeping up? Who are the conductors of this ecosystem that's taking place? And this leads to 2 important words, precariat and talentism. 2 fantastic words that were dominant words at the last World Economic Forum. And who is a precariat? It could be any one of us. We used to have the proletariat. The precariat is someone who may be disintermediated in this new world. Automation is increasing, AI is increasing. What's that impact? And in countries in which employment is important, job creation is important, the social changes are going to be quite impactful. Talentism, and I love this quote, that one of the biggest challenges, particularly of the existing workforce, is to unlearn some of the things, that we have gone through, and to think through what this concept of talentism actually means, that you have to be adaptable. That will be the leaders and the winners. Is the future going to be the digital players or the brick and mortar players? And there's a belief that the future is neither. It's going to be those organizations able to blend both. What we have is augmented abilities. Ability for information, the ability to access this information to enhance ourselves. Themba Baloyi was one of the first to realize that if you can get cars to bring back and feed back data on how you drive, you can be rewarded based on that behavior. So behavioral economics are going to be absolutely critical. The experience is changing. The expectation of customers in the Uber world is to have that experience. The days of lost forms, multiple ID submissions, we have a change of customer preferences and priorities. The agile movement is actually a further development of the lean movement. It's a new way of working, of pulling cross-functional teams together to focus on products and to deliver it. It usually works against the DNA and antibodies that exist in traditional corporates. And so we have to have a generation of leaders who are able to traverse both these worlds, to function in these corporates, to try and work through those mechanisms to deliver it. And it all boils down to this concept of the customer journey. Because at the heart of it, it is the change in customer behaviors that is driving a number of these changes. Kuseni is what I would describe as one of our business leaders who's a business statesman, not just astute at delivering results. He's been at the helm of Anglo-American and Old Mutual, and now he's chairman of Massmart. You have the Amazons of the world and the Alibabas. And this represents the old economy with the new economy. And we have Lew Klassen here, who, very modest and very humble, has also carved a path in this new economy. Lew Klassen, who is one of the partners and founding partners of Newtown Partners, a venture with Vinnie Lingam, who many of you may know from the TV series on television involving entrepreneurs. The two of them were at the very start part of the belief in Bitcoin and the blockchain. And so Lew is executive director of the Blockchain Foundation, and he's going to share with us his views.
The fourth industrial revolution is an inescapable reality of our time. I think we have to adapt or perish to its dynamics. The Walmart sales in the first quarter of this year, sales from digital platforms, e-commerce sales, were to the tune of 114 billion US dollars. That's in rand terms, that's over R1 trillion.
You come from the world of disruption. In fact, your job is to back who are going to be the winners amongst these disruptors. How do you think this future is going to roll out?
One of the most compelling technologies there for us, and something which is a foundational technology for this fourth industrial revolution, is blockchain technology. And we believe that in the same way that the internet has changed so many different things in terms of the ease at which it has enabled the transfer of information, what blockchains effectively enable you to do is to do the same thing, but this time with value. And so to the point about these emerging technologies and how they might change things, it's the nature of these technologies is that in the short term they will make no difference, in the long term they will make every difference.
You'll be loath to find a group today, banking, retail, that doesn't have a Bitcoin think tank within it, an incubator that's been formed, a little VC fund, but we're littered with thousands of failures and money spent. Why has it been so hard to take this leap?
My experience with working with corporates in this space is that it is exceptionally difficult to resource small divisions, exceptionally difficult to give them an opportunity to get air, to get initial traction, very difficult to avoid corporate antibodies from killing off these small organizations while they're in that very early stage when they are not making a contribution to revenue. and in many cases they're trying to do things which, if successful, will undermine some of the core business units. And it's exceptionally difficult for organizations to say, we're aware of the fact that if we get this right, it is going to have a negative impact on our near-term revenue or profitability, but it will have a positive impact on our long-term success.
Tembolo is a young global leader at the World Economic Forum. He's a member of YPO. But he also came up with this idea many years ago while jogging, I believe, on making cars enter the Internet of Things era.
Road fatalities are a key issue in South Africa. We're losing 14,000 people on our roads. And we can lament all we like, we can scream all we like until we blue in the face and talk about the inefficiencies of government, talk about the lawlessness of our drivers on the road. Until you have got tangible interventions to enable people to take corrective steps, it is all hot air. It's going to produce zero. And that was the whole idea of coming up with Discovery Insure within the context of using telemetry technology. Now, for those who are not familiar with telemetry technology, it's the ability to connect devices and to connect information and put it into a central repository and then use that information for whatever outcomes that you want to achieve. But for our case, it was very clear the outcome we wanted to achieve was to change driving behavior. A lot of people at the time, when we were doing this type of work, we're doing the research, they thought this behavioral economics thing is nonsense. But having been privileged to be in an environment that has used this behavioral economics and used it successfully within the context of vitality, I saw value in that. If you're going to be innovative, you cannot continuously and always be looking in the direction of where the problems are coming from. You've got to look broadly. So as an example, the Formula One circuit was a very potent area for us to find ideas. And the idea of the Formula One circuit is that as much as they're driving at speeds of more than 300 kilometers per hour, there's very little fatalities in that circuit. Why is that? And then when you start digging deep, you realize telemetry technology is at the cornerstone of how they monitor what's going on the circuit and how they advise and guide drivers to take corrective action. And then you bring that kind of thinking and you marry it with short-term insurance in South Africa, motor insurance, and you say, if we combine these two ideas, teach people and give them feedback continuously, incentivize them, bring that element of behavioral economics, hopefully you can come up with a solution that solves a genuine problem in a profitable way. And that goes back to that issue of purpose. Why do you exist? Is it only about maximizing profits? And if that's the case, then you're doing the wrong thing. But if it's about solving a specific problem, and let me underline, in a profitable way, then you're doing the right thing.
If you look at the great businesses, the customer is a participant in the experience. And that's one of the messages we're drumming in. Look at Uber. At the end of the trip, you end up rating a driver and you get rated. You are a participant in an ecosystem. That rating is fundamental to future success.
We are a retailer that covers a diverse range of LSMs, from LSM 1 to LSM 10. So we have teams that are dedicated at servicing the different segments. We've segmented our market.
Every organization in the future will create economic incentives for customers to perform certain actions. Every single organization will do that. So behavioral economics is a reality. When we do some of our really new crypto investments, we actually sit down and we actually create a model of an economy that revolves around the consumption of the service or the good, and we say, how can we create economic incentives for people to perform certain actions that we are looking for them to do?
What advice do you have for our students who are ultimately going to move from the safety of the classroom out into the real world to try and make an impact in it?
There are many question marks around what is the nature of employment in the future? What is the nature of economic participation in the future? And I think that the best thing that we can do at the moment is not sort of fixate on a specific skill set that you acquire, but fixate on becoming capable of adapting and acquiring skills as and when you need to. And you will be in a situation where you will have multiple careers during your lifetime. So get used to that idea that it does not stop once you finished at university. It's an ongoing process.
It's really, we're living in an era where it's not so much return on investment or return on capital, but it's return on talent. And I think the people that are going to be relevant, that are going to win, are those that are going to be perpetual students of their surroundings and be prepared to disrupt themselves.
You know, one of the anecdotes that also came out of the World Economic Forum was that in many instances, it's not just an issue of digital strategies, but it really is on how online behavior really shapes our offline lives. Trying to engage and understand customers is not just about B2B or B2C. It can be and is about H to H. It's human to human. And if you fundamentally understand that interaction with human beings, even with the advent of robotics and AI, that it is a human interaction and link that we want, I think those are the businesses that will succeed.